Hey friend, welcome to Everyday Imperfect, the podcast for busy people with imperfect faith. I'm Tabatha pastor's wife, mom, author, speaker, and a very imperfect believer in Jesus. I've had to wrestle through some pretty dark times in my faith, all while keeping that mask of perfection in place. Till finally I realized that having faith doesn't mean that you don't have doubts or questions. Just because we have doubts and questions does not make us less of a Christian. It means we are a Christian with questions. And you know what? It's okay to have imperfect faith. We have a perfect God after all. So if your faith needs a little boost today, crank those AirPods up and borrow a cup of imperfect faith from us today. Let's go. Hey friend, thank you for joining us on today's episode of Everyday Imperfect. If you've been with us the last few weeks, you know that my husband, Jerry, and I have been taking you on the journey with us as we have been kind of intentionally delving into a little spiritual growth on our vacation and how we're able to integrate that faith together. This time, you will be meeting some good friends of ours, Chuck and Kate von Glahn, who have graciously agreed to sit down and have a conversation with us about how they integrate faith into their everyday life with themselves and with their children. So, before we get started, let me reintroduce you to my husband, my pastor, my enabler of all good things, Pastor Jerry Ruiz.
Hello.
And without further ado, please welcome our good friends, Chuck and Kate von Glahn, who are on this cruise with us. Hey, thank you guys for being with us. Sure.
Yep.
So, can you give us just kind of a snapshot version? The people who listen may know you, but they may not. So can you give us kind of a snapshot version of who you are? Tell us about your family, what you're proud of, some embarrassing moments if you want to.
What's your Miss Clairol number?
Miss Clairol. I don't think they use Miss Clairol.
No.
I was talking to Chuck.
Oh, whatever.
Sorry. Okay.
So tell us about you guys.
So we are Kate and Chuck von Glahn, and we have 4 kids.
Mm-hmm.
Our oldest is recently married, so we actually have 5 kids. I'm sorry to change that. We have 5 wonderful children, David and Jordan, and then Ray, Micah, and Sam. And we've been married for 21 years.
21.
21 years, more good than bad, and that's the goal, right?
That's it.
Yes.
Good years and bad years. And we were in farming for a lot of years. And at the beginning of this year, we transitioned out of traditional farming, which was a major change for us and a major step in faith. And God's met us every step of the way.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Chuck, can you tell us a little bit, how did you come to meet Kate way back in the day?
So I moved to Camilla, Georgia in 2002. And I came over as a youth pastor, worship leader at a church in Camilla. A few years there.
Mm-hmm.
Kate was at the time at the Wesley Foundation up in Athens as an assistant director.
Yeah.
And as part of the church, her father and mother were attending the church. And as a youth pastor, wasn't making much money at the time, so I had to get secondary jobs, and one was Mr. Miley Adams was gracious to give me some work in the afternoons and the weekends on the farm, and just what I could do.
For him when we first met, because I thought the very first time we met at church.
We did meet at church. We met at church briefly, but you went back to the Wesley Foundation for a while. But I was also looking for income.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was just a secondary, something to keep me busy, since ministry is not busy.
Yeah. Actually, I gave him my number.
Now, see, I'm the one supposed to have the jokes.
Oh, my gosh.
I made the first move. And very interestingly enough, so we met, and then I was back and forth from Athens, so didn't see him a ton, but came down. So we met like New Year's Eve, I think. And then I came down. It was our spring break, so it was March or April. And I went out to see the pastor of the church we were discussing something, and he said, "Come on, I want to show you our new property." So we went out to this new property, and Chuck was actually out there on a tractor mowing.
First time I've ever been on a tractor mow.
Oh, was that really?
Oh my God.
Thought your tractor was sexy. Is
No,
that-
no.
Okay.
So then we so anyway, so the pastor and I left. I went back to Athens, and I was driving around the city one day, and all of a sudden the Lord reminded me of a dream that I'd had months and months before, when I had been fasting and asking the Lord, please send me the one for me. And I remembered this dream that I had. In the dream, there was a man. I couldn't see his face, so I didn't know who he was, but my daddy was in the
That
tractor
was you. Yeah.
harrowing a field, and he stopped and he got out of the tractor, and this man, who in the dream I knew was my husband but didn't know who he was because I couldn't see his face, got in the tractor and took over for my daddy.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, that was symbolic, but just not really. And when I realized that and remembered that I had seen Chuck on the tractor, it was like, oh, whoa,
So did you feel like then that the Lord was trying to tell you, hey, there's something up with this Chuck guy? Keep your eye out.
Yeah,
Or were you like, oh, okay, that's a good coincidence?
No. I mean, I already my interest was definitely piqued, and I saw a lot of things that I really knew that I wanted and that I liked. But I mean, to be honest, when you're on the hunt, there are lots of things that you like. So, I mean, but it definitely was like this is more than just a casual, oh, there's some good things about him.
Oh,
So
nice.
it was, for me, it kind of helped.
I'm glad you
cement.
actually brought that dream out because I was going to ask you about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I forgot I had told you that. But yeah.
Yes. It's one of my favorite parts of your guys' story.
Yes.
So y'all have been together 21 years, you said, right?
Married
21
Yeah, I
years.
think we dated a year and a half-ish before we got married.
4 babies plus one, grown, who are pretty much grown now. Looking back, I know parenting is never easy as we think it will be.
What?
When you were anticipating.
My kids are perfect.
Right?
Issues.
Well, you guys have been a good rock, I think, for Jerry and I, and we only have one child.
Totally
but
agree.
You guys have definitely shared a lot of wisdom with us. Was there somebody in your lives who kind of shared the parenting wisdom with you guys, or do you feel like you really just kind of learned as you went? Where do you think you got most of your wisdom? And I'm just going to call it wisdom for what that's what it is.
So I am one of 5,
Mhm.
and my parents did a lot of things right. I mean, they, for as long as I can remember, they loved the Lord, and they were the same people at home that they were at church. So for me, that gave me a huge foundation of, I never ever wanted to be somebody that my children saw as 2 people.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
this is her church person and this is her home person.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, my mom, while we have chosen to parent in some ways that are different than our parents, there was just a lot of good for me growing up. So my mom was always a good resource.
Right.
I always call mama when I don't know.
Yeah. That's the good thing about Southern mamas.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I feel like you guys are a great team, though, because y'all balance each other well. I feel like most days. You have a question you want to ask them about?
Well, my question is, I had to do a lot of on-the-job learning as a father because my examples did not run deep. And the examples that I did have of fatherhood were not exactly pristine.
Right.
So my question is, Chuck, how did you become the father that you are?
Well, I made lots of mistakes,
Yeah.
and tried to learn from them quickly. Unfortunately, you could probably go back to the first with David, and there's a lot of challenges at the time, just trying to figure out life and figure out what a father was to look like, and trying to not replicate some things and being okay replicating other things, that were okay that I was growing up, and then you have another child, and you're like, oh, I've got to change some things, and so you begin to try to curve it a little bit and apply it to the first, and so we just just over time is just constantly coming before the Lord and just going, I don't want this, I don't want that, but I see that's good, so let's take the pieces that are good and let's build on them. And a lot of I'm sorry's even later in life, I recognize I missed the mark, and I just as prepared as I was or thought I was. I missed some things, and so there's had to be some healing and some forgiveness and some, talking about things, and you know, I'm human, and I did grow up in a family that went to church and was around the church. Wouldn't say it was always the best of home, situations. A lot of arguing, a lot of stress, a lot of challenges. So a lot of that, in my mind, was always, there's some things I don't want to carry, and I've got to change that path and direction. And so, and even as much as I wanted to, there were still some things that, because I didn't allow roots and things in me to be healed or, work through, that I did carry. And again, it's just challenged me to continually come before the Lord and say, okay, it doesn't disqualify me, but it does give me an opportunity to learn and to grow even amongst the children.
Well, we learn from positive and negative examples.
Sure.
If we're willing to.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think one author wrote that I learn more from the things I do wrong than the things I do right.
Yeah.
And I think that having a foundation of faith, even though maybe speaking for myself, I didn't have a great earthly example to follow as far as my father was concerned. But through the New Testament and through everything, if you look at Jesus's teachings, he taught us so much about the Father. And he exemplified the relationship that I needed to replicate with being a father. And for me, that foundation was always it was my balance. It was my mean. It was the center of which I could decide, is this example something positive I can attain, or is it something negative I can change? Yeah. So, and I hear that kind of thread in your experience too.
One of the things that I really appreciate and love about Chuck in our journey of parenting and marriage and all the things is he always reminds us, one, we're on the same team.
Yeah.
I'm on your team, you're on my team.
Right.
And we're not doing this separate, we're doing it together. But two, parenting skills, the good ones that I learned from my parents, it's almost like I think of it like a toolbox or like a caboodle for the girls that grew up my age, a little fish and tackle box. And so, my parents put some really good tools in there. And maybe he didn't have quite as many, but he steadily over the years been learning and putting parenting tools in his toolbox, and it's, you can say, well, you can open it up and say, well, I don't know how to be a communicator, or I don't know how to say I'm sorry, or those are all learnable skills, and so that has been something that has guided our parenting, which is, if we don't have a skill and our kids need us to have a skill, we're going to go find somebody that can help us get that skill, or we're going to study it, or we're going to ask the Lord for wisdom and divine, help, because it's a learnable skill.
Absolutely. I think that what's come out to me most with our conversations is how readily humble you guys are. Like you, and I've seen this not just with your own kids, but like with people in the church too. If you have no problem telling somebody, hey, I messed up, and let me just apologize for that. What can I do to make this better? What can I do to blah, 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 blah. And I feel like you guys model that very well. Do you feel like your kids are picking up on that yet?
They know that we do it. I don't know that they're as much willing to do it, but we can hope when we get past the stages of knowing everything in the universe that they will. But I actually learned that is not something I learned growing up. I learned that from Danny Silk. He has a parenting, keep your love on, and marriage kind of relationship, a ministry really, but.
Okay. We can find a link to that and put in the podcast.
Yeah, and I heard his daughter, I think her name is Brittany, can't remember her last name, but she also joins him in that. And she has children, and she talks about a story where her child had made a mess at a neighbor's house. And so, the child was falling to pieces about it. She was like, look, you made a mess, and I'm going to help you say to the neighbor, I made this mess. How can I fix it? And she went on to talk about how some, making messes is part of life. You try to pour milk and you spill it. You try to do something in the house and it doesn't come out right. That making messes is part of life. But part of, I think, learning and growing and being mature is saying, I made a mess.
Yeah.
Can I fix it? Because sometimes we can't.
True. Yeah.
But can I fix it? And if I can, I'm going to try to fix it. And then also, I'm going to learn from it and try to make it over and over and over again.
And do you find it easy to be able to do that process transparently in front of your children, or do you feel the need to fix it and then show them it's fixed?
For me, okay, so remember I'm one of 5,
Right.
and I'm the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So my oldest sister is a trauma surgeon. My oldest brother is a CFO for a big fancy company. And my younger siblings are equally accomplished in all of their areas. So I never felt like I could compete. So I guess I've always felt like you do not have it together, girl. Like you are not high performing. You're not high achieving. So in a way that took a lot of pressure off of me because it was like, I already know I'm screwed up.
You're almost like control.
I'm already a mess. So I might as well just tell you that I'm a mess and just enjoy it and go with it.
I think, I compare a lot of this to like life things that happen, whether it's on the job, thinking of, something that Miley was always very gracious if I made a mistake. He would explain and, what in the world, but at the same time, he'd be like, okay, now you've learned, you need to, this is what you need to do different, and so he gave me a lot of grace. And so, I've actually had some good teachers, even within our family, to go from David, make a mistake instead of just coming down on his head. I'm like, okay, let's give him some grace, give him an opportunity to make the mistake, not to the point where it harms him. If there's some way I can, throw in some guidance to, but if he makes a mistake, I'm not, listen, what did you learn? What could you have done different?
Exactly.
And let's move on from there.
Learn from it and go.
Let's learn from it and go on.
Do you remember the time that he left the gate open after driving the dirt bike out there, and all those cows got out, and there were all those cows in the woods?
324 of them
down in around my parents' house and in the woods, and
that's not your guys' cows,
they're
right?
not.
Yeah,
They're not.
Yes.
Well, that's that free range beef.
So I can remember that.
Several weeks they still were looking for ones that diverted. Yeah.
Oh my God.
But I remember because it was late at night and we realized that they were out, or we realized right at dusk. So they went and they herded cows out of the forest and the woods and back into the pasture until it got too dark to do it. And then they got back up the next morning.
Oh, wow.
Did it again.
Wow.
And David, even though he had left that, David helped to.
Yeah, Chuck helped him with that, but it was not very often that he left that gate open again.
Oh, I bet.
I'll tell you
Yeah.
that.
Lesson learned.
Yeah.
I want to circle back for a moment to one of the characteristics of your parenting style that I admire greatly. And you alluded to it just a few moments ago. When I do my premarital counseling with couples, one of the things that I say very often is that you cannot over communicate in a relationship.
Yeah.
It's one of my bumper stickers that I want everyone to have ground into their head, that because I believe that communication is the foundation of trust, and trust is the foundation of a relationship. And one of the things that I think you guys excel at is the level of communication, not just from you to your children, but the communication freedom that your children feel to communicate with you. How did you foster that in your children?
Well, I first want to credit the communication to Chuck because my parents, when I grew up, my parents fought behind closed doors. Well, if they fought, I don't even know. I don't know. So it was just not ever done. So when we got married and we had arguments or fights, I didn't know what to do with that. I really thought that meant that we were headed for divorce. And so, and then him saying that there were lots of fights in his house. So we've had to find we've had to find our way and keep reminding each other that just because your parents did it one way or your parents did it one way,
Mm-hmm.
that we have to find our own way. So we have done that. And my younger sister and I talk about all the time that when you are striving for a heart connection with your children, then you give up the what's the word I'm looking for? What's the parenting style? You give up the my way or the highway. You give up the fact that they always do what they say and they fall in line, and they like you have to be okay with the fact that sometimes they're going to embarrass you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes they're going to talk back and you want to smack
Giving them permission to accept their imperfection.
Yeah.
But yes, but that requires some serious humility as a parent because it is embarrassing. To be honest, it is embarrassing.
Hey friend, did you know that it only takes 21 days to create a new good habit? And with that in mind, we've created 3 study journals that we're calling the Habit Series. These are just 21-day study journals, and each of the 3 tackle a different subject. Like for the first one is introducing God so that you know who God is to you. The second one is one I think kind of all of us need, interrupting anxiety. And then the third one is probably my favorite. It's called Mindset Reset. And it helps us to realize who we are according to who God says we are, not who society labels us as. So if you're ready to get started, diving into His Word just a little bit at a time, creating a new healthy habit, get started here. Go to the show notes and click on the Amazon link to find our study journals there.
So there are definitely times where I just wish they would, be like little. I used to tease sometimes when they were younger and we'd get out places and I'd say, okay, everybody pretend like you're a robot and you do exactly what I say and you do all the right things and nobody acts out. And, we would all laugh. But there was a little tiny part of me that was like, please. But,
please do this.
Yeah. But I think we have a heart connection with our children, which is more important to me than them being perfect.
But also they've all got such different personalities, and so they're not equal in the way that you respond, or take things in. Some are trying to joke and do this and that. Some are very serious. Some get offended quickly because they think, so you have to learn them and be okay that it's not all going to mesh, but it's going to get to the same place, hopefully, within their character, and it's okay that they're different. That's
But Chuck has always been really good at saying, you can't over communicate. We're going to talk this through. We're going to, we're going to make it.
And also the communicating, I'd go based on body language. I go based on facial expressions and the voice. So I have learned not to just text back and forth. There's so much miscommunication through the years of you can't fully communicate all that the emotions that are needed. So, I would encourage, just real quick, get face to face, make that happen, even if it makes you feel like those are just so frustrating. I just can't work through it. You just want to just, get on your phone and y'all just need to get your crap together. But, no, just get face to face, because it also breaks open opportunities. If you start seeing there's something deeper, then you can see that tear come down, or you can see that emotion and fear, or whatever it is that's drawing, when you're
communication is so much deeper than just words. We communicate on many different levels, and that's, I think, one of the shortcomings of our texting culture is we're unable to properly communicate simply through 32 characters in a block. So I'm with you there. FaceTime is very important. I noticed one thing about your family is, for those who don't know, Kate is one of the best cooks.
Yes.
On the planet.
100%.
I like to cook.
Absolutely. And we've had many opportunities to sit around your table and to be gifted to be a part of your family for an evening. How much emphasis do you put on that table gathering?
We don't.
Okay.
Yeah. It's one of our, I think it's one of our goals and hopes is that that place always feels safe and that we can sit down and get real and have fun and discuss. Now, are we living a life of busyness and with so many different directions? Sure, we're just like a lot of families and we neglect that. But when we have it, it can be very meaningful.
It's not neglecting. It's that okay. So when the kids were little, so our 4 kids were born in a span of from 05 to 12. So it was a short span of time, and he was working on the farm, and so and I stayed home with the kids. So when he would come home, he wouldn't come home until dark 30 or later, depending on the crop season. And when our kids were little, we had strict bedtimes because mom couldn't handle anything else. So, you know, I couldn't make the kids wait on him to come sit back down. And then they went to school, and it was just the rhythms of our life never lined up to do that. And it was a little stressful because I think, you know, when we would all get together and they'd be at the table, it was like a zoo. I mean, a dadgum zoo, and it was stressful. And I was not taken so often at the time, so it was just a hard thing. But yes, now it is a lot easier to do. To
Thank Jesus and co-op.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, but your children know that that place is always available to them and that you are open to them any time of the day.
Yes. And Jordan and David come and eat dinner with us 2 or 3 times a week. And they'll say, we want to come to your house tonight. And I'll come. Yes. Don't even ask me. Just come. And I love that.
Yeah.
Love it.
It's a welcoming environment.
It really is.
They
you
feel
guys have created very
and
much.
I think that's going to become even more important as the years go by when they become their own adults with their own families.
Yeah, I hope so.
We've always desired to have a safe place that their friends, you know, whatever that they feel like, even if it's not, they want to be there, you know. Not that it's the party house, but that it's really the place where they feel safe and they feel they can connect and their friends feel safe and can communicate as well because they've got some great friends.
Yeah,
and we
really
love them all and we want to continue to let them find a place that maybe they don't have as well.
I know we've told you guys this before, but you have such a gift for hospitality.
Yeah.
And the minute we walked into your home a couple of years ago now, we just felt at home. So if the kids' friends are feeling that, y'all are definitely doing something right.
I feel like that could be its own topic of
how to be hospitable.
Yeah. Not wait till everything's perfect to be,
you know, just
hospitable.
Exactly.
Just open it up.
Exactly. You just give people what you've got.
Sister Blair gave you wisdom about that many years ago. Our former pastor's wife, my father in the faith, my mom in the faith. Can you recall?
Yeah, basically it's what we were just talking about. So hospitality isn't being the best hostess with the finest china and all this other stuff. Hospitality really is just offering with love what you have, whether it's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a glass of water or something grand. You just offer what you have with love, and you guys have definitely done that.
Yeah. It's not about being perfect.
Right. Never.
It's about allowing people to be comfortable being imperfect together.
Absolutely.
And it creates a sense of togetherness.
And sometimes I think I aggravate Chuck in that because I might be a little too loosey-goosey about, sure, come over, we'll figure out a sandwich together, or I'll just feed you leftovers. And sometimes he's like, okay, now.
And
step it up a little.
Oh my gosh.
This is where the communication comes in.
Right, because sometimes he's like, I mean, are you even trying?
Are you even trying?
But, you know, it works out.
Well, we love coming over to your house and inviting ourselves to your house.
Well, how many times have you come over and I've been in my slippers and pajama pants? So, I mean, you know.
Nothing wrong with that.
That's why you love us coming over, right? Because you don't have to get dressed.
Set the bar low.
Exactly. So another question that we had actually happened on this cruise. I mentioned it to Chuck yesterday when we were talking. And this is just the epitome of how I view you guys just integrating everyday faith into your family life. And that is when we sat down to have dinner. And before Chuck or Jerry, who as the head of the homes, normally would be the ones to like, okay, I'll pray you now. But Chuck said, okay, Micah, you pray. And Micah just without a bat, didn't even blink. He's like, okay. And he just went ahead and prayed over the meal. So kudos to you guys, first of all, for doing that. What can you tell us what kind of brought that up to mind to do that? And then what other things do you guys do that's just like you don't just relegate to like one person, but you open it up to that whole family?
For me, I really do have a desire that my kids can excel me. They can get beyond me. And so it's not all about me, but giving them the opportunity to, just laying it before them and, just letting them find that place is real important. I mean, that opportunity, builds their confidence. It gives them, the nerves kind of get out of it. And also they begin to not just say, Lord bless this meal, amen. They really start to think about who's around the table. They get thinking about the day and the friendships.
Even if they can't remember some of our names.
Yeah. But it just begins to guide their journey. I mean, like I said, it just begins to set them up for who they're becoming, and seeing that in them and trying to hopefully, encourage that in any way. But
it provides for them an opportunity for introspection that they may not have otherwise. Praying out loud. I have a friend of mine who believes that praying out loud is a nonsensical concept, because if we have a God who knows our thoughts, why are we having to speak things out loud? I understand all of that. That's theological fodder. But for me to have to focus my intentions and my thought processes into verbally speaking my prayer, it helps me to have a time of introspection that I wouldn't have any other way, to really think about my day and really search out where God showed up, and to be able to thank him adequately for those times. That honestly, if I weren't focusing on praying out loud, it probably wouldn't happen.
Right.
So there's value.
It's the spoken word too.
It's the spoken word, the power of the spoken word.
And sometimes you need to lay it all out and say it, and then hear it too.
Absolutely. And that brings me into a good point, that in your family you have a heritage of spoken blessings. Would you speak about that just a little bit for our listeners?
Sure. Did you want to do it in this way?
Yes.
Okay. We'll just follow the rabbit trails wherever they lead. Yeah. So my mom, she's always been a great studier of the word. She loves to study. She loves to dig in, to understand, to really dig deep. She started doing Kay Arthur studies way back then, and she was an excellent student of the word. And so she really is the first one that sort of started digging into what the power of the spoken word and what the power of the spoken blessing did and does for us. And so she had an experience with her father who was not very emotive, and who wasn't very verbal in his faith. And she said, Daddy, I want you to read this blessing over me. She had a hip that was out of joint or something like that. Maybe a leg was a little bit shorter than the other, and so she was out of alignment. And she had this written prayer. And she said, Daddy, I want you to read it to me. And he said, I'm not doing that. And she said, yes, you are.
Claire's like, oh, yes, you are.
And my granddaddy was not confrontational at all. So she said, yes, you are. And he said, I don't want to. And she said, I'm not leaving here until you do it. And so he said, okay, probably, I'm sure, just to get her to move on and to stop the confrontation. Anyway, the Lord touched her body. And when she went back to physical therapy, they were like, the issue's fixed,
Wow.
And so that sort of really cemented in her what she already knew. So now at every Christmas gathering, graduation, baptism, momentous event, marriage in our lives, we do a spoken and a written blessing, so that we just pray and ask the Lord, what do you want to say over this person? And then we do that. And it's been really neat. We did that for David and Jordan's wedding.
We did that whenever David went out on the mission field.
Yep. We did. So it's
falling into agreement with what's already set in place.
Yes.
So it's just building that. We hear it, and now we're saying it. Now we can experience it, and so it just becomes part of our life. And I think it's impacted my life. I mean, they have, even to the brother-in-laws or son-in-laws, I guess in this case, I just read them, and they really do take time to ask the Lord, what do you got to say? And usually it's dead, right on, and it's encouraging. It compliment. I mean, it's the word, it's truth, and it's a powerful thing to
I love
to
that.
hear it from, not only your father on earth or your father-in-law, but it meshes and it becomes reality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
I think there's a big connection with that and spiritual journaling.
Oh yeah, that makes
Because you
Yeah.
have to focus on what you're writing and
Uh-huh.
what its content is to such a degree that it helps you to think about things more
and to
clearly.
really pay attention enough to hear the leading of the Holy Spirit
Yeah.
instead of just let me just write what I feel.
Right. Right.
Well, and in that vein, it's the same, but it's a little different. So there were several years ago where I can't remember, one of our kids was really being tooty, and I was really struggling with that child.
That is,
And
I'm taking that word. It is going to be mine now.
well,
You're just being tooty.
sometimes that's about the only thing that covers it. And I can remember just really fussing to the Lord about this kid, like, oh, they're being this and they're being this and all the things. And I heard the Lord say, move in the opposite spirit.
Mm.
So I'm like, okay, so how do I do that? Because this kid was just spewing, aggravation, frustration, whatever was going on in their heart all over everybody. And so the Lord put it in my spirit. So I started that year, February the 1st, and for 14 days on everybody's door, they got a sticky note at night that said, David, you are kind. Ray, you are brave. Micah, and I would ask the Lord, what are some things? And some of it was things that everybody could see. And then some of it was calling forth what I know to be there.
Right.
In my knower. But I may not see it.
Yeah.
Not as though
That's calling it out. And so for 14 days we did that. I did it for Chuck too. And it's gotten to be a tradition. And actually, the kids will have friends come and spend the night during that 14 days, and they will ask, am I going to get a love note too? And I'm like, you absolutely are. So they say get them on their door.
And they'll stay there for months. Like they don't pick them
they
up.
don't take them.
They just go back, and they'll read each other's, and it just reminds them of.
That's such a perfect example of integrating faith and function in your family.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things. So the kids noticed that I was doing the letter writing, so I was never getting any. So one day Ray wanted to be sweet. She probably was about Sam's age. She probably was about 12. And she was at my office, and she wanted to leave me a love note. So she wrote me a love note that said, your hair smells like pizza. And it was the greatest compliment that she could give me. Now, keep in mind, she can't smell, but, pizza equals happiness. So why should, her mom's hair not
Oh
smell
my
like pizza?
gosh.
I love that.
Ray has such a gift for interesting compliments.
She's quirky. I love it. I love a quirky girl.
She was, when you guys first started coming to our church, I remember Chuck asked her what she thought about the service and all that. And I think she was like 16 at the time. And her compliment was, I like the pastor. He doesn't have a stick up his rear end. And it's like, that is the greatest compliment I think I've ever received in ministry.
Not
ever.
true.
For a teenager to say that you are real enough not to have a stick up your butt.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
But does your hair smell like pizza?
My hair does not smell like pizza. No.
Well, I think we've had a really, really good podcast, but I'm going to throw you guys for a little bit of a loop.
Okay.
Don't freak out, Chuck. So we're going to play a little game. It's like the word game where I say something and you have to say the first word that comes to your mind, but it has to be one of your 4 children.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay, and you both have to do it. So I'm gonna say who is, for example, this is not one of them. Who is the reddest, for example, of your children? Well, we're gonna know right now that's gonna be Ray.
Permanently, it's fine. Yes.
So
The beautiful
you say that.
lobster.
Okay, and there's just a few of them.
Okay.
So, but you both have to do it. So, as soon as I say who was the Oh, I almost did it. So who is this? Then you both say the name. Okay, ready?
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm just watching.
And it can only be one of your 4 children.
I'm the studio audience.
Okay. So who is the loudest of your 4
Sam.
children?
Well,
What was
Is
your
Ray-
first response,
I
Chuck?
said Sam, but
Okay.
probably
When David gets hyped up, he's pretty loud, but Ray has a loud speaking voice.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay.
I think maybe Sam is the most consistently loud.
He's the most vocal.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's good. Okay, who's the biggest joker?
Micah, I think.
Micah.
To me.
probably Micah.
He and David have given each other a run for their money lately.
Oh, really? The newly married guy is giving
Yeah.
Micah a run for his money. Okay, who's the most serious of your kids?
Do we have one?
Serious.
I don't know that we have I mean, they have serious moments, but I don't know if we have a serious kid.
Okay. So on the other hand, who's the most spontaneous of your kids?
Probably Sam.
Sam.
Yeah, Sam, who was the youngest?
Yeah,
Of course.
Who of your kids is the biggest planner?
Ray.
Ray is.
Yes.
100%.
The one girl.
Agree.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Makes sense. She has survived amidst all those boys.
And woe
Yeah.
to those who
Disrupt
do not follow
that plan.
along with the plan.
So who is the quickest to complain?
Sam.
Sam?
At the moment.
Who's
But he's 12. 12 is.
That's
But
your
before
transition.
it was
Yeah.
Micah. Before Micah, it was Ray.
So it's
Yeah.
always was the baby.
Yeah, I mean it's
It's that age.
The middle schooler.
Yeah. Whoever's in middle school. 2 more. Who is the quickest to give compliments?
Micah, I think. Micah and Jordan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And who's the quickest to pray? Or to offer to pray?
Micah.
Micah. Micah's got a big heart.
Yeah.
I think. So
Awesome.
I think this has been the most fun on a podcast we've had so far.
It's been a lot of fun. And I do want to say, I feel like we really didn't get to how you put faith in with your family.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Because I'm thinking of lots of different ways.
Okay.
What we're going to do is we're going to say that this podcast is going to be in sections.
Okay.
Okay. We will be back with Chuck and Kate, and we will revisit this topic. And here's what we're gonna do. Between now and that time, we're gonna come up with our top 5 ways to integrate. Top 5. We're gonna do a top 5 list. Okay, so be waiting on that. Look for it. Stay tuned, podcasters.
Maybe by then I'll have some more questions to put Chuck and Kate on the hot seat.
That sounds like a great idea.
But
Like,
let me.
questions like country music or bluegrass.
Oh my gosh.
Well, you know mine all day long. But let me say this, though, to any parents or people who want to be parents who are listening. Parenting, marriage, friendship, relationship, church relationships. The number one thing that I could encourage anybody with is keep going.
Amen.
Just keep doing the next thing. Do not quit. Say your sorries. Try to clean up your messes and just keep pushing through. Because there are going to be phases and cycles and times that are just so good that if you were any happier, you'd have to sit on your hands. You know, like you're just so good and happy and everything feels good. And then there are times where you think, I don't know.
I am not going to make it. Yeah.
If God can get low enough to find me right now.
Wow.
Because I just feel so down. But it's not going to last. Neither one of those are going to last your life into the next season. So just hang in there.
Amen.
That was such a verbally accurate way to put that.
Yeah.
I don't know if God can reach far enough down to reach where I am.
And that's a whole other podcast. But I can speak on that one.
podcast.
I'm telling you right now.
Well, you want to close us out?
Yeah, so guys, thank you for listening in to today's episode of Everyday Imperfect. We just had such a blessing to be able to sit here with our friends. And I want to make sure you know, if you haven't already, go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating and definitely a review. Share this with a friend or 2 or 10 who you think will be blessed by the conversations that we're able to have with our friends. And we will see you guys, or you will hear from us next time. God bless. Hey friend, thank you so much for joining us on today's podcast. Check the show notes for any links and resources we may have mentioned, and please do me a big favor and leave us 5 stars on the podcast platform where you found us. And if you can't give us 5 stars, tell us how we can get those 5 stars. That's how other people can find out about us and the message we're trying to get out, that it's okay for us to be imperfect in our everyday life because we follow Jesus Christ, who is perfect for us. Also, if you'll go to the Buzzsprout link in the show notes, you can leave me fan mail. That's basically where you tell me what you think about the show and make suggestions for upcoming topics. I can't wait to hear from you. Now, please share this imperfect episode with your imperfect friends and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode releasing soon.